5 years ago this month, Private First Class Bowe Bergdahl went out to stand watch at night in Afghanistan, and he didn't come back. That's about the only undisputed fact. Saturday, President Obama appeared on the White House lawn with Bergdahl's parents and announced that he had traded their son, now Sergeant Bergdahl, for the release of 5 high-level terrorists from Guantanamo Bay. The president told Mrs. Bergdahl after the ceremony, "It's a good day." But is it? I'm PJTV's Scott Ott, joined now by Stephen Green and Bill Whittle, and this week we bring you a 3-part series on the release of an American enigma, the soldier who some call a prisoner of war and others call a deserter. Well, men, if you watch the president's news conference with Bergdahl's parents, it was just what you'd expect when we bring back one of our POWs.
As president, I know that I speak for all Americans when I say we cannot wait for the moment when you are reunited and your son Bowe is back in your arms.
It was an emotional moment, brought about thanks in part to mediation by the former Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa al-Thani. But the reaction from men in Sergeant Bergdahl's former unit reflected a different kind of emotion. Stephen Green, several soldiers who served with Bergdahl say he was disillusioned with America's role in the war and that his departure was premeditated desertion. Now, Article 85 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice says desertion can merit court-martial and execution. Should we follow the president's lead and declare that the repatriation of Bowe Bergdahl is good news?
Well, a couple of things. First, one, you've got to feel for his parents there. They're getting their boy back after 5 years, and no matter what kind of a person he may be, that's still a family there that's being reunited, and that's got to touch you. The other thing is, it's always good news when an American soldier comes home, but there is some doubt as to whether Bergdahl was still an American soldier, or even if he still considered himself an American. Apparently this guy, if the allegation is true, he renounced his citizenship. He wasn't just fed up with the war. There are other allegations that he was actively helping enemy forces. That just doesn't make him a deserter. That makes him a traitor. There's a good chance that this guy doesn't belong home with the hero's welcome. He belongs down in Gitmo with the 5 Taliban commanders we released to get this guy back. This thing moved way too quickly. The only people calling this guy a hero are all in the administration that worked so hard to get him free. Everybody else either has mixed feelings, doesn't know, or is dead set against this guy. Jake Tapper yesterday was following this on Twitter. He was having a conversation with seemed like a fairly liberal journalist, I believe, out in Los Angeles. And this other journalist asked Tapper, well, you need to get both sides of the story. And Tapper, frankly, told him that he couldn't find one person in the United States Army that served with this guy who could say one good thing about him.
Well, in that list of soldiers, Sergeant Matt Vierkant, a former member of Bergdahl's platoon, told CNN, quote, "I was pissed off then, and I'm even more so now with everything going on. Bowe Bergdahl deserted during a time of war, and his fellow Americans lost their lives searching for him." Now, the Pentagon says that it can't track any soldier fatalities directly to the hunt for Bergdahl in the weeks and months following the June 30th, 2009 incident. But some of his old comrades say they can, naming at least 6 who were killed in action searching for a man who was, by some accounts, not interested in being found. The Pentagon says we leave no man behind, and they say even if Bergdahl deserted, it's like when a soldier goes overboard or a sailor goes overboard. They don't care if he fell or got pushed or jumped. They turn the ship around and attempt a rescue. Bill Whittle, do Republicans run the risk of looking unpatriotic or insensitive by bringing up the evidence that Bergdahl was no prisoner, at least not at first? I mean, come on, man. Obama. Oh, that's the classic error, isn't it? Obama killed bin Laden and rescued the only American POW in Afghanistan. Can't you give him a little credit?
No. Let's say a couple things first. The story is still new and developing, and like every other American, the man has the presumption of innocence, so let's just get that on the table. With that said, these allegations are serious, and Steve's remark that they couldn't find a single person who ever served with him who had a good word to say about him, we'll just use that as a pretext for a little speculation. If it turns out that these allegations against him are true, then It is the patriotic thing to raise this story. It's a patriotic thing to make it very clear that this guy was a collaborator. It's a patriotic thing to press charges against him if he did in fact collaborate or commit acts of treason. And I think the thing that's most impressive to me in this, when I say impressive, I just mean startling, is once again, the tone deafness of the Obama administration is just something that just never ceases to amaze me when it comes to the military. Here's the president in his casual little outfit with his open collar, his fingers, he's got his hand in his pocket. He's relaxing. He's like he's announcing, you know, that there's going to be a new Walmart opening in Des Moines someplace. But Scotty, don't you find the timing just a little bit odd? You know, we're just coming off of this gigantic, enormous Veterans Administration scandal where criticism against the president that he doesn't care anything about the military, that he simply just has no particular concern about it. He raised it as a campaign issue and then read about it in the newspapers. I can't be the only person who's a little impressed by the coincidence that just a few days after this scandal, we find that the one remaining U.S. serviceman who's been missing is suddenly returned home. You know, this thing seems to have Susan Rice's fingerprints all over it, and I get the feeling they were in such a hurry to come up with something pro-military that they didn't really think too much about it. And I frankly don't think Susan Rice considers it a terrible disadvantage if the guy did collaborate with the Taliban. I just don't think she or the president have any understanding about military honor, ethics, or codes at all. None. Zero.
Well, wait till we find out that Bergdahl wasn't missing or captured. He was just waiting for an appointment at the VA. You know, I firmly believe in our armed forces credo that drives them to risk their own lives to recover their brothers in arms. In many ways, it's what differentiates us from our Stone Age volcano-worshipping enemies who value life less than our military values ordnance. I also know that war can mess with a man's head, and young soldiers can make irresponsible decisions. And so I'm sympathetic to Bergdahl's condition. Even if he turns out to be a crazy traitor, he deserves a fair trial, as Bill indicated, and just punishment. But just like I think that cops should avoid a high-speed chase in pursuit of a low-value perp, I understand why some of our military leaders decided not to risk our best men to bring back one that didn't want to be brung. For Bill Whittle, Steve Green, and the entire Trifecta crew at PJTV.com, I'm Scott Ott.